This is my Project 2 Renaissance Masters project on Donatello. In this, we'll be talking about the introduction of what the Renaissance was and who Donatello was, what are the formal, expressive, and contextual theories, formal analysis number 1 of one of his artworks, formal analysis number 2 of one of his artworks, a conclusion, and then a works cited page. So the term Renaissance was created to describe rebirth, as artists, authors, and musicians were really focused on human achievements and what the human could bring to the world. Throughout Europe, including Florence, which is where Donatello lived, there was an intellectual decline before the Renaissance, so not much learning was happening. So especially in the early Renaissance, learning and just focusing on the self and just focusing on humans was the top priority. Donatello did help this since he created some of the first freestanding sculptures and statues. And then he included ones that were large scale and nude, which were not really seen at the time, which showed the increase in learning through his sculptures. And his technique changed sculpture forever, it changed art forever, and especially in Western art. The 3 theories of art criticism. There is the formal theory, which deals with formal qualities, which relate to style, movement, time. They believe that a part should enhance the whole, so you cannot change one element and keep the art the same. It spoils the whole art if you do that. Art should show a connection or a togetherness of some sort, unity. And art should be created just for art's sake. There should be no other purpose behind it. And a great artwork for this theory, one that this theory would 100% approve of, is one with perfect organization, technique, and visualization, so it's visually appealing. The contextual theory focuses on the background of the artist and of the world at that specific time. So when the artist made the artwork, what was going on during that time, what were the different conflicts. The art should serve some form of the world, so either politics, the church, businesses, the state, people, and advancing humanity should be the goal of the piece. And depending on previous artworks that have already been around, is inferior. It's not great, and it's just lower if you do not have an originality. Changing human behavior is the most important part, and this change does have to be public, and the private emotions and feelings of the artist do not really matter. Expressive theory, it's focused on communicating feelings and beliefs through the art, so making sure that your viewer understands how you feel. The art can be ugly and it should be deep. The art has to be pretty organized and technical. Viewers should draw emotion from it and feel something when they look at the art, so it has a significance. And because of this art, life should be more profound, and most importantly, the artist should be able to make the viewer believe in what they see in the artwork. So if a viewer looks at artwork and sees something, they should start to believe in it. So for my formal analysis number 1, we're going to be doing the Penitent Magdalene. So for description, which is the first part, it is a statue of Mary Magdalene, who is one of the most well-known people of the Bible. Donatello used white poplar wood, and he created it around 1453 to 1455. It's not completely sure. The lines in it are very overlapping, specifically in her clothing, due to it was supposed to represent the clothing and the rags that she would have worn during this time. It's very textured. There's a lot of layering going on. Her hair is layered. Her clothing's layered. There's not that many shapes, as most of the stuff is vertical, just up and down, but her eyes are big circles and appear very sunken, which draws attention to them. The color is very dull. It's a medium light brownish. Donatello is known for using chisels and mallets. Since the statue uses different depth, and he would have needed to shape the wood to create the seat. And the statue is organic since there's no defined shapes. and it's 3D. For the analysis, so while the statue is like mainly the same size, her hands and her large circular eyes appear bigger, which Donatello may have wanted to like emphasize do so everyone can see how she's repenting for her sins. The shapes are very uneven, jagged. It's not like a smooth, like cohesive as much, and she's not as neat as she is supposed to be. The statue is mainly one color, but certain areas like are darker, like her clothing and her eyes. The texture is very varied. Her skin's kind of smooth, but like her hair and her clothing are very ragged and not neat at all. This can reveal how Mary is dirty and frail on the outside due to all her sins. And he implied space by overlapping her hair and clothes, and especially showing that by her stance as her knee is bent, and it's to show that this space has a limit. There's not that much negative space because Donatello really wanted the focus to be on the positive space of her and to focus on her physical appearance. For interpretation, Mary is usually seen as beautiful, but Donatello depicts her as haggard and just worn down, which shows that continual sin does take away from personal beauty. It does make me feel upset for her as she is emaciated and does not look well, but it does make me a little fearful of sinning because of how bad she looks when she is repenting. He may have been trying to keep people away from committing sins like adultery and prostitution, which were the main sins that Mary committed, and that is done by making her look so filthy and unhealthy and old. He also might have wanted to inspire other sinners that he would have seen at the time to show how you can have strength and push through it, as Mary does show some strength here as she's still alive and pushing through and repenting, which Donatello may have wanted to bring out. And it does evoke heavy emotion, and it could even bring out more to people who identify with it, as they might identify with the fact that Mary has sinned, which makes it thematic. For the judgment and evaluate part, so for the formal theory, it's not the best piece of art because it has too much emotion. There's not that much that if Donatello changed it, it would not be the same. Donatello could have changed some of the small details and the artwork would have been relatively the same. There is pleasure from the elements of the design, but it's mostly because of the thematic message of it through her sinning and her repenting for her sins. And he created the statue based on his experience with sinners and his knowledge of the Bible, which is not good for the formalist. For the contextual, it's an amazing piece of art. It helps advance the interests of the church since it promotes staying away from sin. The interests of humanity can be advanced. It focuses on the negative consequence of sinning, and it can establish better faith in the public. And the connection between social intention and appearance is super close because Mary looks very gaunt due to all her years of struggling with continual sin. For expressive theory, it's a great piece of art too. It's not a very beautiful work. Mary's supposed to appear ugly here, and in the expressive theory, work is not encouraged, but is known to be ugly at times. It's a very intricate piece which arouses emotions. Mary's missing teeth and her large hands shows how sin steals beauty, leaves people that they have to repent. The art is extremely realistic, and it can make others believe in what they see, such as seeing Mary in a negative way or in a positive way, depending on how you look at it. For my second formal analysis, I'm going to be reviewing St. Mark. So St. Mark, for the description, it's a marble statue. It's carved from one block of stone. It's about another Bible figure, St. Mark, who was the author of the Gospel of Mark. It's a very dull color, gray. There is a lot of texture here, especially in his toga, to make it more realistic of what they wore. There's many lines here, diagonal, vertical, horizontal. It's a very intricate piece. There's not really geometric shapes since St. Mark is a human, so he's organic. It is 3D. There's a lot of details in his face, his feet, his hands. Donatello usually, like I said, used mallets and chisels, which there's a picture of the block of stone right there. And since this is such obviously a big block of stone, mallets and chisels would make sense. For the analysis, St. Mark is pretty much the same size, but the book in his hand draws a lot of attention as it's a little out of place. And his piercing stare in the statue brings about more attention as he looks extremely serious. The color is gray for the whole statue, but like the folds of his toga or his book are darker than the rest, which may have been intentional. Curves are softer here. There's a soft texture since most of it is just a soft piece of clothing. There's not much sharpness or points. It's more just so fluid. The textural surfaces in the sculpture are also different since there's more texture in his beard than in his clothes. He's very relaxed or contrapposto, which makes him appear way more natural and humanistic. Contrapposto was a stance during the Renaissance that many sculptures used. There is not really negative space. St. Mark takes up most of it, but the positive space is limited as seen through his stance, and there is a lot of overlap and shadows due to his clothes and the book that he's holding. For interpretation, St. Mark does have a book in his hand, which may show how important he was to the Bible since he wrote the Gospel. It was built to decorate the outside of Orson Michele, which was in Florence, Italy, which is where Donatello lived. And it was a place of religious devotion at the time, which is that St. Mark was probably put there to inspire faith and to inspire going to church. I do feel more connected to his part in the Gospel, seeing him in a more personal way, other than just someone that I know is an author of the Bible, but to see him in this type of stance, it's more relaxed, it's more personal. Donatello's main purpose was to make the Orson Michele more beautiful, but he also, by doing so, may have felt that a religious object would make more people be able to go to the Orson Michele and be more religious. It's not overly heavy, since Mark is seen as in a positive way, unlike how penitent Magdalene was perceived. And Donatello just may have wanted more people to come to the Orson Michele, which is maybe why he wanted to create the projects, especially this one, just to attract more people. For the judgment or evaluate section, for the formal theory, it's a great piece of work. It's very seamless. Nothing is too rigid or uneven. It's his toga, his stance, the book. Changing something would definitely ruin it, as it would take away from the personality of it. It's a very unified piece. It's very technically and organizationally detailed. And it's more so from the visual part that the appreciation comes from, not really the symbolic part. For the contextual theory, it's a great piece of artwork. It's pretty good. It serves the interests of the church and the state. It was built to the outside of the Orson Michele. It does not advance the interests of humanity as well as some of the other pieces that he did, or as well as the penitent Magdalene, but it did could have convinced some people to attend church more often. Donatello's talents are really seen here since the piece is not that emotional, and the social intention was mainly just to get viewers to the Orson Michele, which is done through it being St. Mark, so that shows a connection. And then for the expressive theory, this piece is not a great piece of art. It's not that deep. It does not affect feelings very greatly. Someone who believed in it, the expressive theory, would not regard this piece highly since it does not arouse that much emotion. There's some admiration, but it's not that big. And the art is extremely realistic, though, which does help it in the expressive view, but it does not make a more, a profound or a meaningful effect on the people who look at it, and especially since expressivists rely heavy on a communication of a symbol or an idea. The statue does not really show that. In conclusion, Donatello really contributed to the Renaissance movement through his statues and sculptures. They were much more extravagant than I'd seen before, showing a growth in learning in a time of rebirth. Two of his sculptures, the Penitent Magdalene and the St. Mark, they were large statues of biblical figures. They were very different since Penitent Magdalene was about the consequences of sinning and what can happen to someone when they sin. But the St. Mark was more about the importance of church and just coming to church and admiring someone who wrote the gospel, while also being technically intricate. And then Donatello really changed art and paved the way for more sculptures and just artists down the line due to his alluring artworks that really set the stage for the Renaissance and represented the Renaissance style. And then here is my works cited page. Thank you so much for watching.